Welcome to Chapter 3 of A Realm Retold. In this chapter, we will be discussing the Coil of Bahamut raid. We finally get to hang out with the other twin, Ul'dah, for the first time. I mentioned in my first video the reasonings for choosing to cover this, but I'll reiterate it here. Everything from Chapter 0 of A Realm Retold to now has been surrounding Bahamut and what he did to Eorzea on the 7th Umbral Calamity. The Coil of Bahamut raid ties up that story arc into a nice, neat little bow. It will give us a conclusion so that we can continue on without the ever-looming threat of Bahamut at the back of our minds. But enough talk, let's get into it. Our story begins with us talking to Urianger about the primal who awoke after the defeat of the 14th Legion and Ultima. He tells us to join a member of the Scions, specifically someone we haven't met before, Ul'dah, the twin sister of Alfinawad. She tells us that Castrum Occidens has a cavern created from the Calamity's destruction, and she wants to explore the said caverns. We fight through Castrum Occidens and find the entrance to the cavern. We begin to run through the fragment of Dalamud, surrounded by an enormous amount of corrupted aether. We notice that a defense system is still active within this fragment. If the Garleans want to use this technology for themselves, we must seal it off before they can. After venturing through, we come upon a large piece of Bahamut's wing. How did this happen? Isn't Bahamut a primal? So how does he have a physical form even after being defeated? How did he even end up losing in the first place? There are so many questions that Ul'dah doesn't know the answer to, but intends to find out. So we press onwards. The camera pans out ever so slightly to reveal a familiar silhouette, but just as Ul'dah turns around, it is gone. We end up taking a lift down and now find ourselves 912 yams deep, then 1233 yams deep, and then 1524 yams deep. The defenses seem to have no end, but if we want to reveal the truth, then we need to keep pushing. The lift reaches the bottom of its descent, exactly 1910 yams. We can clearly see what is the hand of Bahamut, really giving us a sense of size of Bahamut when comparing it to our own. Ul'dah still ponders the same question she asked previously. No sooner than we arrived are we attacked by Twin Tanya, an ancient wyvern from the southern continent of Mericidia, who is being controlled by a Neuralink around her neck. We defeat her and move forward. We reach a central console and activate some sort of contraption. Ul'dah details to us about the Neuralink and how ancient Allag would control dragons to win any battle. Our conversation is interrupted by a loud roar. The contraption awakens. All of the parts start moving. Then suddenly the wall in front of us removes itself from our vision to reveal Bahamut's head still alive, his heart still beating. Bahamut is not dead, and Dalamud is gathering all the aether it can to attempt to regenerate him. Just as Ul'dah calls for our retreat, we spot Louis stood down with Bahamut along with another man who is wearing what looked like Garlean armor. We retreat outside and find ourselves in northern Thanalan, even though we started in Castrum Occidens, located in eastern La Noscea. We discuss what we saw to gather our thoughts, and Ul'dah decides that we should regroup at the Waking Sands to discuss with everyone what we found. We return to the Waking Sands and speak to Urianger. The aetheric disturbance that was felt by Ul'dah believed it was located in Mordona, but in fact it was the Cartanu Flats. It explains how we ended up in northern Thanalan upon exiting. By the fact that we discovered Bahamut's still beating heart and the slowness of Eorzea's ability to heal, it must lead to one conclusion, that Bahamut still yet lives and Dalamud intends to revive him. We must stop Bahamut as he will absorb all the aether he can until he's revived, then he will continue off where he started 5 years prior. Ul'dah is still determined to see everything through. She wants to put an end to Bahamut but also talk to her grandfather. She believes that Louis must be watching Bahamut to make sure he is unable to leave Dalamud. We found one of the fragments of Dalamud that hit the floor was known as Ragnarok. If we were to explore more, we'd probably find the second fragment. Alfinawad will be left to deal with the diplomacy that comes with this task, but Alisaie, with the help of us, will be more hands-on to reveal the truth of the calamity. Urianger seems to have conversed with Rambros, the Rogadim from the previous chapter. He told Urianger about how Dalamud was constructed to gather energy from the sun and provide that energy to the Crystal Tower. The Allagans saw how Bahamut was able to manipulate energies, so decided to put him in Dalamud as its core. Bahamut was kept in place by those pillars known as Ragnarok, but they are also known as Interment Hulk. Those pillars are designed for two things: to restrain him and to be his source of aether. They allow him to maintain his physical form without followers or aetherite crystals. Bahamut was kept up there for centuries. Even after the Allag Empire was no more, it still persisted in the air. That's why Bahamut let out his rage the moment he became free. If we are to render all the Interment Hulks inactive, we will dissolve Bahamut and return him to aether. Upon scouting through the realm, a fragment of the Lesser Moon was located in the Black Shroud, bearing the same etheric signature as the one previously. Alisaie seems to have found a way to enter this fragment and find the Interment Hulk. Maybe some exploration will allow us to deactivate this Hulk. We are told to discuss with one of Alisaie's assistants known as Serpent Lieutenant Anael. We will then enter the fragment with our group of adventurers. After we talk to Anael, she tells us to talk to one of her scouts who has been watching the Hulk this entire time. We are then told to return back to her, and mid-conversation we are joined by Alisaie. Alfinawad. He seems to have come to talk to us just before we venture into the second coil. He speaks to us about Alisaie and how she loves Louisoix very much and wants to walk in his footsteps. She would tend to take charge, but since Louisoix's death, she has tried to take over what he left behind. She wants to save the world in her own proactive way. He is worried that the quest to remove Bahamut from the world once and for all would turn into a quest to save Louisoix's shade, a man who has been long dead. He believes that his sister should have a stronger resolve, a better reason to fight, as right now hers isn't that strong. Alisaie must choose her own path and not wait for Louisoix to choose it for her. Alfinawad is glad that we are at her side, as who is better inspiration than Eorzea's greatest champion? He bids us farewell and asks Anael to not tell his sister that he was even here. With that, we are now able to enter the second coil. We make our way to the entrance of the second coil and come upon a gigantic set of corrupted aether crystals that are distorting the land in its near vicinity. Our goal is to disable the Interment Hulks to cease Bahamut's regeneration. We spot an opening and aim for there. As we start to go deeper, we come upon a familiar figure, the White Raven himself, Neil von Darnus. But how is he alive? The Warriors of Light killed him in an attempt to stop Dalamud's descent. It seems that he is tempered by Bahamut. We have yet another question without an answer. We keep going deeper and deeper in this Allagan structure, fending off anything that tries to get in our way. We are eventually 3,526 yards deep, defeating the securities left behind by the Allagans, till we eventually arrive 6,329 yards deep. This place looks reminiscent of the place where we defeated Neil von Darnus originally. Speaking of Neil von Darnus, he appears to us, stating that he will defeat us for trespassing on his god's domain. He starts glowing red and begins channeling the power of Bahamut. Alisaie reacts and fires a spell towards him. It knocks off his helmet to reveal that he isn't a man at all, but actually a female. We know from the official Final Fantasy XIV lorebook that Neil von Darnus isn't actually Neil von Darnus at all, but in fact his sister Ul'dah Darnus. She was the eldest daughter of Darnus and followed her brother into the army. Her goal was to become a surgeon, something befitting of a Garlean lady as herself. But one day her brother returned home, mortally wounded, after a mission ordered by their father. The mission seemed to be without proper planning and was just sending her brother to his doom. As she tried to save him, she failed and her beloved brother died. Her dream died that day. Instead, she assassinated the previous legatus by making it seem like he died of illness and became the legatus herself, whilst pretending to be her brother, Neil von Darnus. The first thing she did when she got into power was execute her father and his officers for what they did to her brother. In the final hour of Neil von Darnus, she was reached out by a godlike being. The being told her to bring defeat to his enemies and claim the victory that she was denied. She channels the rage of Bahamut and turns into a being of dragonkin, gaining dragon-like proportions upon her body. We are challenged by her. If we can't defeat her, we won't be able to defeat Bahamut, as she only carries a fraction of Bahamut's true strength. We keep fighting, and eventually able to come out victorious. To only reveal that everything we have been seeing is a projection created by Dalamud. It seems she wasn't completely defeated, but she has returned to her normal form. Alisaie pities her, as Bahamut seemingly took over her being and denied her the right of death she deserved. She is confused about what we are talking about. It seems she has finally snapped out of it, realizing what she did, what she became. We are surprised to see that someone was able to break out of Elder Primal tempering, as it was meant to be impossible, but maybe Bahamut relinquished the tempering as he has no need for a thrall who is about to die. She states that there is irony in this, in how she looked down on the icons and ended up tempered by one, and was bested by none other than Louisoire's granddaughter. We ask her to tell us what actually happened in the calamity. Nell Von Darnus tells us to continue on, as answers will await us further in. Alisaie still has hope that Louisoire isn't dead, but we know deep down what the true answer is. Out of nowhere, Nell Von Darnus is smited by a glowing spear. Being told to be quiet, Raven, she then disappears. It seems that Louisoire was the one who finished her off. We come upon a console. Alisaie raises her hand towards the console and disables one of the internment hulks. We make haste for the surface to talk about our findings with Urianger, but we are attacked by Louisoire. He sends a bolt of lightning directly towards Alisaie. Alisaie is seemingly starting to realize that the Louisoire that is down here is not him, but a tempered shade of the man who he once revered. She sheds a single tear, but is more determined than ever. We are told to return to the Waking Sands to discuss with Urianger again. Bahamut is a constant threat and currently regenerating. We have 2 internment hulks left that are doing their job. Every moment we delay, there's a chance that they succeed. She knows where the other internment hulks are, but not a way to get to them. Urianger tells her that we saw Nell Von Darnus' shade was tempered by Bahamut, but we know that she wasn't alone. Bahamut had other thralls, specifically alluding to Louisoire being one. Urianger tries to console Alisaie, as the man down with Dalamud is not the same Louisoire, but the shade who defiles the memory of him. She should be wary and keep that in mind. Alisaie tells him not to worry. She seems to have made her mind up, stating that she won't let her grandfather's sacrifice be in vain. Either way, we need to find the entrance before we can do anything, and Urianger tells us to help Alisaie to do so. We meet with one of Alisaie's assistants named Dex, and he hasn't been able to find a path to the fragment. We can see the entrance from here, but are unable to reach it. Dex tells us that he lost contact with his brother, who was surveying the other fragment in Mordona, so we rush out to find what happened. Upon arriving, we find Sinis on the ground. He is in no immediate danger and he reports his findings. Even though we can see the fragment is surrounded by hard rock and crystal, there is no way of telling how deep one must dig before the entrance is discovered. In other words, he is also unsuccessful in finding a way into this internment hulk. We are contacted via Linkshao by Urianger and tells us to meet him in northern Thanalan. Upon arriving, Urianger tells us that our journey may be able to finally begin. He states that we ended up in northern Thanalan after ending our journey. He believes that we can take this very same path back down and find the other 2 internment hulks that way, as they may share the very same aether space, meaning that they could potentially set up an aetherite to teleport us right where we need to go, to deactivate the next set of internment hulks. Alfinawad finally reveals himself to be the master of this plan. He has been working with Urianger to figure out a way to gain access to the other hulks. Alisaie is not happy to see that Alfinawad had a hand in this, nor that Urianger didn't tell her what he did, but she should set aside her differences as we need a little bit of help right now. Alisaie says that she will strike down Grandfather, protect Eorzea, and uphold Grandfather's legacy, but this is exactly what Alfinawad discussed with us earlier. She doesn't have a reason for doing anything for her own. She is still latching on to Louisoire. If it was her reason for wanting to save Eorzea, she should be able to clearly explain why she wants to do it, but instead just saying she's doing it because Louisoire did, means that her resolve is shaky. In the end, Ul'dah lets him tag along on one condition: she makes all the calls. We are now granted the ability to enter the final coil of Bahamut. We find ourselves 4,560 yards deep. We are with both of the twins, and this internment hulk is seemingly still active. We aim for the same console we found before, to deactivate this hulk and put an end to Bahamut. We defeat a Coil-like enemy and discuss how many dragons are currently being held captive in this chamber. It seems that they might have been used as a defense within Dalamud. Alfinawad questions Ul'dah, asking if she has figured out a way they keep Bahamut sustained without prayers. Ul'dah states that she thought the Allagans just figured out a way to provide prayer-like energy. She glances around the room, and suddenly it clicks. The answer is right in front of her. We finally realize who these dragons are. They are the beloved kin of Bahamut. They summoned Bahamut initially and are permanently locked in Dalamud forever, to sustain him as loyal followers. The Allagans had such fantastic tech, but it seems to be created with a lack of empathy. How could they do such a thing without even thinking about how the dragons feel in this scenario? We now understand why Bahamut was so angry at the human race, and why he did what he did during the calamity. We cannot dwell here though, we must push forward. We are now 6,835 yards deep. We come upon an area that looks like a miniature version of Dalamud. Ul'dah sympathizes with Bahamut, as he was trapped in a cage for an extremely long time, seeing the same walls, knowing his brethren are trapped here with him, sustaining him endlessly. Although he can be pitied, it doesn't mean that he can live. His vengeance will know no end. We now arrive 8,872 yards deep. Bahamut's regeneration has progressed quite far. He is almost complete. We must make haste. We go to stop the internment hulk but are blocked by Louis Soir. He told us that he would fight us if we came back. He asks us if what we are doing is righteousness. What is righteous is that we need to defeat Bahamut for the good of the realm. Alfinawad returns back, asking what the hero of Calamity believes is righteous and just. Louis Soir calls us ignorant, and that the world isn't shaped by any recent conflict. He will tell us a story, and then you tell him if our path is righteous or just. The story begins in the Third Astral Era. The Allag forces are attacking the southern lands of Mericidia. Their strength is great, and they begin wiping out the dragons. The remaining dragons prayed for salvation and summoned their broodfather Bahamut. And like the miracle he was, he eradicated the Allagans. Yet the miracle didn't last, as he was eventually used by the Allagans in Dalamud and bound to the Allags forever. When humanity was cornered, Louis Soir summoned primal incarnations of the 12 to defeat Bahamut and stop the 7th Umbral Calamity. Louis Soir asks, why is he revered, where the dragons of Mericidia are hated? Man is blind to their tyranny. As long as man is to remain, the dragons will suffer. Only when man is purged will the dragons be free. Only then will the world know of true justice. But this isn't so true. This is the talkings of a primal. Ul'dah remarks that her grandfather would never talk like that. He believed in the people. He knew that people could stand together and be strong enough to fight back the dark. He remarks that he doesn't believe in man. Man are unable to find common ground. Even the twins don't find common ground between each other. He even mentions how the twin grimoires were meant to bring them together, but it brought them apart. Alfinawad cannot believe the words he is hearing, as such a one-sided rant about how evil man's existence is sounds false coming from Louis Soir's mouth. He asks him, does he stand by the dragons because he is tempered by Bahamut, or is it because he has transcended man's existence? Louis Soir says that Alfinawad finally notices that he did. What the people prayed for, and what he became, are the keys to the truth behind the 7th Umbral Calamity. Aether begins to converge around him. He asks us to fight his divine form and take the answers by force. He flies into the air, turning into that of a phoenix. Louisoix has seemingly become a primal. Alisaie tells us to defeat him for his sake. We are tasked with defeating Phoenix, a new primal who was previously Louisoix. He doesn't go down easily, as his ability to rebirth makes it tough, but in the end we are able to defeat him. By defeating him, the original Louisoix returns to us for a bit, without the tempering of Bahamut. He thanks us for breaking him free of Bahamut's control. Alisaie cannot believe what she is seeing, but it is truly him. Ul'dah walks up to him and apologizes for what he said earlier, but he states that he is proud that he deducted what he had become. He asks for forgiveness from both of the twins. Alisaie wants to know the truth of the calamity, and Louisoix agrees and finally tells us the truth. I did cover this in the 7th Umbral Calamity video, but I'll cover it again here. Just as Louisoix was about to be consumed by Bahamut's terror flare, the 12 appeared to him and granted him a vision. The aether that was previously used in a spell that attempted to ensnare Bahamut failed, but that spell's aether still lingered and fell to Louisoix, empowering him. The people around the world were scared and frightened. They wanted to be saved from their demise. They prayed for Louisoix to defeat Bahamut and come out victorious in this battle. By receiving a massive amount of aether and the prayers of the people, this is how he became a primal, the immortal Phoenix. The people wanted him to rebirth Eorzea and start it anew. With this newfound powers, he was able to hold off Bahamut. Eventually piercing his chest and defeating him. As soon as he noticed his powers were not needed anymore, he allowed his aether to return to Eorzea so it could speed up the healing process. Little did he know that Bahamut wasn't gone just yet. In the last moments before Louisoix disappeared, Bahamut took that opportunity to temper him as his mind was weakened. He absorbed some of the aether left behind by him and used that to start his own regeneration process. After the battle, all the aether used in the battle began to fall down onto Eorzea like snow. And with that, we finally know the true ending of the calamity. Everything said explains why Eorzea has never been able to heal. All the aether that fell during that day, Bahamut has consumed. Until Bahamut is defeated, the lands cannot heal. The Coils of Bahamut will seek out Bahamut and begin to regenerate him. They were created to make sure he would be alive and constantly generating energy for the Allagans. Dalamud itself would dig through the ground until it found the heart and began regenerating Bahamut there, along with absorbing the aether in the land. Louisoix tells us to defeat Bahamut, to defend Eorzea and guide its people to salvation. Louisoix then deactivates the second internment hulk. He provides us with an entrance to the final hulk and begins to dissipate from this world. One last time he calls the twins over. They approach him. He tells them to let go of him and find their own reason for fighting. Ul'dah proudly states why he fights. Alisaie still has doubts, but Louisoix remarks that she did speak of the strength of man with such conviction, that it even reached his heart even whilst being tempered by Bahamut. Maybe that would be her own true reason for fighting. Alisaie bids her grandfather goodbye and tells him that he deserves the rest. Louisoix asks that the light's blessing may always follow the twins. Then his form turns into a blinding light. He is no more. Bahamut is now vulnerable. All of his thralls are gone, but out of nowhere he casts a flare right at us. How is he able to do that even in this state? It injures Alisaie and Ul'dah. He begins casting a second one. We won't survive this blast. Alisaie has a flashback to Louisoix telling her to find her resolve. Alisaie states that she's already found her reason for fighting. We have been guiding her and showing her the strength of man, doing things that we didn't think we were capable of, but in the end we were capable. She is capable. She won't let Bahamut defeat us. Bahamut won't destroy Eorzea. She activates a barrier which blocks the flare. She is struggling to hold it, but Ul'dah is glad to hear Alisaie state her resolve. He assists her in maintaining the barrier, stating that their resolve has become one. the twin grimoires begin floating. And combine into one grimoire. They announce, "For the future of Eorzea," and their barrier's strength increases significantly. They send us into Bahamut's heart. And we arrive in a twisted world. Before us lies a fully powered Bahamut that resides within his heart. This is going to be the toughest battle yet. Our resolve is steeled. For all the people who fought during the Battle of Cartanu, for Louisoix and those who we lost during the battle, all the pain and suffering felt by families and communities as they were splintered by his vengeance. And for the future of Eorzea, we will put a stop to him here. The battle is as tough as you'd expect. He even fires off a terror flare at us. But we will not go down. We cannot go down. We are the last hope at bringing a true end to the 7th Umbral era. If we falter here, everything we did will be for naught. In the end, he is slain. Bahamut falls to us. We emerge victorious and return to the twins Alisaie and Alfinawad. By defeating his heart, we made Bahamut unable to attack. Alisaie walks up to the console and deactivates the final coil. He is now unable to maintain his physical form. In a moment, his form bursts into a blue light, and then a blinding light. His entire being turns into aether. Bahamut is no more. This aether will be absorbed by the land. Eorzea can finally begin the healing process of the 7th Umbral Calamity. We intend to keep the truth learned here. We cannot let the people of Eorzea know of a primal as Phoenix. If people hear of a primal that saved Eorzea from destruction, they may attempt to summon him again, and the summoning of a primal is not good for the lands. The information we discovered here shall be left in the crypts of Dalamud. The people do not need to know exactly what happened. But first we will return to Urianger as he is still waiting for us. Urianger is distressed upon seeing Alfinawad and Alisaie. To be honest, they have seen better days. We tell him that we want to tell the nations that the elder primal Bahamut was slain, and that the entrances to Dalamud should be sealed off so that they may never be disturbed again. Alfinawad interjects, saying that the diplomacy should be left to him, and that Alisaie has earned her rest. As they walk away, Alisaie calls out to Alfinawad and states, "Though our paths are different, we share the same goal, do we not?" This is a callback to the first time we saw the twins during the Battle of Cartanu Memorial. They were having an argument about their methods of achieving their goal, and Alfinawad said this exact statement to her before she stormed off and left him behind. Alfinawad agrees. What they just did is testimonial evidence to that. Alisaie states that she wants to visit a place. After a quick change of clothes, we meet her in Eastern Thanalan. We discuss how it would be poetic for all the fragments to disappear, but they won't. We spot a family going to the Stone of the 12 and praying to it. She asks us if we want to take a closer look. We nod. She turns to us suddenly and is upset that people won't know of our deeds, but we don't mind. We don't strive for acknowledgement. We just do what is best for Eorzea. But Alisaie states that even if the people don't know, she will never forget. We defeated Bahamut and freed Louisoix's soul from his grasp. Even though these deeds will never be remembered in song, they will be remembered by the people who still live in this realm. She tells us to move to a new spot and walks towards the edge with a flower in her hand. She kneels down and says a prayer for Louisoix, for Nel Vondanis, for the dragons of Mericidia, and for the people who were lost during the calamity. The realm given new life through the prayers and sacrifices of countless souls may look to a brighter tomorrow. And ever so poetically, the flower blows away in the wind. She states that she'll be going on a journey to find her reason for fighting, and when she finds that reason she will fight with all of her being, so that one day she can fight alongside us as Eorzea's sword in the darkness. The next time we meet, she promises she won't disappoint us. Alisaie bids us farewell and thanks us from the bottom of her heart, turning away from us. Hopefully when we meet her again, she will have her resolve and become one of our many stalwart companions. This ends the tale of the Coil of Bahamut. That rounds up the 7th Umbral Calamity all the way to the true ending of the 7th Umbral Era. Bahamut is no more. Louisoix's soul is free. Alphinaud is glad to see his sister has a reason for fighting, and Alisaie is going on a journey to eventually become a reliable companion she wants to be. I'm sorry this episode took quite a while to make, even though it's relatively short. Me and my brother have been absolutely no-lifing Eureka in an attempt to get the glowing armor before Endwalker. It's the last thing on my list to complete before its launch. We also stream every moment of it live on Twitch, so come hang out if you're interested. But most likely by the time this video is done we'll be finished with Eureka. Speaking of my brother, some of the footage used here is from him, as he was doing this raid with me for the first time, so I got him to record the parts the unending journey didn't have. I'll leave his links in the description below, so check him out. Next chapter we'll be finally covering the post-story of A Realm Reborn and everything leading up to the Heavensward Expansion. By now you know it, but I thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Consider subscribing if you are interested in more content like this. May you ever walk in the light of the crystal.